Hello, welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. Today's image is one that also is, I guess, fairly iconic and one that elicits um, quite a response. One of the immediate responses is, how on earth did you make this image? Where were you standing? Where were you located to produce the image? So it's a very obvious question, and I will uh, I think just start by dispelling that. And from the insert I'm showing you now, you will see that the image of the location of this church, that the shadow of which created this image. As you can see, the church, the cross, which would double as a spire, I guess, um, was the stone, or is rather, because the church exists, the stone structure that you could has a spiral staircase ascending it, and is one that you can, um, you know, you can climb the staircase. And I happened to be have done that and was sitting in the shade of this very shadow that you see, the shade at the highest point of this cross, and just enjoying the view at that point, um, and resting in the cool of the shade. And and then I saw this woman emerge from the house that you see immediately above her, and close to the horizon above her. And I wondered, would she make for the cross? And so I had my camera ready, and she did. So it's really as simple as that. But the backstory to this image is that um, this is the area that my grandfather came from. It's in the Hlabisa region of KwaZulu-Natal. And my dad was raised here. And in my early childhood, this was a point of reference. My grandmother still lived here, and we were regular visitors to this place. And this church, in fact, Catholic church, sorry, I don't remember, I don't know the name of the church, but didn't exist in this magnificent stone structure that you see today. It was a much smaller, more humble church, but on this imposing landscape, which was a big shoulder of a hill, quite one of the highest points, looked out over um, both vistas, the one you see in front and the one behind us. And my grandmother was a devout Catholic, and this is where she worshipped. She was part of this congregation. And I was christened here, and or baptized, I'm not sure. One of the very first things that happens to a kid born into a Catholic family. And there's a family legend that I almost came to my demise at, you know, probably a couple of months old, at this function of me being ordained or christened into the Catholic Church. When the Jeep that my dad had at the time, I was placed in the Jeep, and the Jeep began to roll. This image doesn't really show how high this and how steep this shoulder of this hill is. But yes, it's quite a precipice. And fortunately, somebody was able to dive into the Jeep and stop it from its trajectory, which would have probably resulted in my early demise. But apart from that, this landscape is a loaded one, as almost all landscapes are. But it's loaded with the history of my family, who arrived here in the late 1800s as refugees and were taken in by an ally who was Chief Zibebu of the Mandlegazi tribe, the people. And they had come and been ejected from the Ngome area. That's roughly between Nongoma, closer to Nongoma, but roughly between Nongoma and present-day Vryheid, where my grandfather's father, so my great-grandfather, had a 6,000-acre farm and was then an confidant and advisor, if you like, to Chief Hamu Kanzibe, also of the Mandlegazi. Chief Hamu was a royal prince and was a half-brother to Cetshwayo. And in the Zulu Civil War, of the 1883, King Dinizulu at the time, the heir to Cetshwayo, defeated Hamu with the aid of Boer volunteers, and ceded that northwestern territory to the Boers, which then became the new Boer Republic and present-day Vryheid, the Vryheid district. So my great-grandfather and all his 5 wives and many children were evicted from the land that they had occupied, and all their possessions were annexed and taken over as war booty. They left pretty much with the clothes on their backs and whatever they could pack into an ox wagon or ox wagons at the time, and arrived in this place, which is a remote northeastern region. It's roughly between the Hluhluwe Game Reserve and Nongoma, and it's a very rugged and remote region. It has names like Inhlwathi, which means python, or Mahlatini, which means wooded area or forested area. And I didn't realize, I realize now with hindsight, the people of Inhlwathi, of which the nuns were one of the families that occupied this place. So colored people came when like my family arrived here as refugees. Others came to to farm and occupy land with the consent of the chiefs, obviously, at the time. So there was quite a substantial colored community, and I think once again I will insert an image that shows that community in the 1920s, what it looked like. Image taken very close to this location of this church, with people like the McLaughlins, the Stradums, the Duns, and many other surnames, Strings, Rauks, who occupied and comprised quite a big farming colored community that lived here, hybridized people. So I always normally start with the caption. I'm going to read it now. It's a bit late. Which is, I had my confirmation ceremony as a child in this Catholic church in the community from which my father originated. Coloureds left when the area was declared a Zulu homeland by the nationalist apartheid government. Mahlatini, KwaZulu-Natal, 1986. So by the time I made this image in 1986, the coloured community was pretty much absent from this landscape, all having left when, after 1948, the Boers, the nationalist government, made clear by 1960 that with their plan for the homeland system and the segregation of people, that there was no place for colored people in this what was now going to be definitely a Zulu homeland. And the people like my father, the generation of my father, were not um, didn't have the confidence to continue to live here. In fact, my father built it as farmed it, the land, because, as I said, my grandmother continued to live here until the early 19 until the 1960s. So she left here, and I think in the early 1960s. But my father in the 70s was still farming what he considered the small holding that his father and mother had occupied, and he actually built a shop on it, which he lost. He lost all of that to the Zulu homeland, and but because it was such a formative place, and because I had had my father's uncle had continued to farm here until their demise, and when that happened, that was the end of that as well. It's an area that we are still associate with our early formation, identity formation, that kind of thing. So about 6 months ago, I led a delegation of people who, from the families, the many families that had lived in this region, to revisit this place and just reminisce about our early days, and some of the people had actually grown up in this area and had incredible stories. There's a map which I'll try to find that of all the families that occupied this place, and I'll insert that if I can find it. So yes, that's just the backstory on this magnificent image. I haven't had time to talk about what people see into it. Christians are really take to this image because it. But I could, as an activist, I see a counter narrative to that. I see the imprint, the heavy imprint of Christianity and religion on landscapes such as this, and the piousness, though. It's almost like an oppressive image sometimes for me, perhaps just because of my past in this place. So thank you for watching. I'm going to end here. More information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow.